Excuse the mess behind me. As soon as I get done chatting with all you lovely people, be throwing dinner in the crock pot and a peach and a blackberry cobbler in my oven. Hey guys, it's Katie here, and I am back with episode 4 of my Design Diaries vlog. Being a knitwear designer, it's really interesting to take you on a deeper dive into my dip process, or my designs in progress. Last we chatted, I had grand plans of finishing my infatuation shawl, the one that you saw me rip out crazy amounts of. But with my current collab commitments for the rest of the year and my filming commitments for here, that is gonna take a back burner for the moment and just go and hibernate out for a little bit and chill, which is not a bad thing. So it doesn't have a due date, it's not yarn supported, so it's just my own personal design. You can go chill. I do have a finished design to share with you. My next pattern to be released is a collaboration with the lovely Donna of Red Door Fibers. She dyed up this amazing green called Undergrowth. Just lovely. It's much darker than the other greens that she had at the moment, and I wanted it to pair with her lovely string of pearls. I think they ended up perfect. This is Red Door Fibers. This is cottage fingering. It's a lovely silk count to it, and then paired with the lovely Loft Surrey silk. So you want to see what it is. This, before I show you the finished object, which is in testing currently, I did say that I was going to document my time process for this entire piece. The only thing that I don't have documented is the time I spent initially sketching up the design, but that was very quick and it was only about a half an hour time. So that's the only thing not included in these numbers. What is included is all winding of yarn, all working up of the initial design, all knitting, binding off, blocking, pattern writing up, putting it into testing. All that jazz is included, which I think this is the very first time I've ever done this. And this is a simpler design in that it is just a repeated pattern. It doesn't have a lot of different sections or pattern changes or very complicated patterns. So this is a simpler design in that sense only. There was much more that went into the beginning process of working out where the pattern went, centering it, getting to the pattern repeat in as few rows, then having the pattern repeat be just what it needs to be and nothing more. So there was a lot of jazz that went into this initially. Casting, how many stitches to even cast on, that mathematically makes sense with the pattern repeat. There's a lot of things that go on at the beginning of this piece, but once you're going and you're good. With some others, typically will be going and good, and then it gets complicated. But this guy, complicated in the beginning, and then we went flying at the end. Like I was saying before, got off track there. But I did keep track, time-wise, of every single time I sat down to work on this design. When I sat down to work on it, these time chunks, at least 95% of that time is actually working and not getting up. Anytime I would get up to and I'd have to walk away from it, I would, close my time out. So like I said prior, this is a repeat until you're either happy with the size or you have enough yarn to bind off with style of pattern. I could have gotten at least, I'm guessing, 2 more pattern repeats out of the yarn, but I really liked the size. So I felt I used at least 90% of the yarn. So I used enough and I was happy with it. So then came bind off time. Did try a number of bind offs and I settled on binding off in my accent color in a nice chunky I-cord. Now binding off with a Surrey lace was fun. Not something that is, the easiest thing to do, slightly tedious. So anytime you're holding multiple strands of yarn together, performing any kind of bind off can be fun and challenging, but it came out really nice. And it gives me a nice chunky accent to band to finish off my piece. So you want to hear the details. You don't want to hear me ramble about all my junkety junk here. So statistically, I'm really happy I did this. It was a little constricting in the beginning because I felt I couldn't just grab this and work on it. I had to keep track of the time. So I'm not sad that I did that. I will be doing it again in future projects because I think it's kind of interesting to see maybe just the actual knitting time. How long did this actually take me to knit? And maybe leave out all the other stuff. And I was thinking about it this morning and I was like, I could have used like a stopwatch, either on my phone or my watch or somewhere to make it easier to keep track of the time. Future Katie thoughts here. I spent 17 days working on this shawl for a grand total of 2,136 minutes, or an equivalent of 35 hours and 36 minutes. Knitting time only. That doesn't include winding, that doesn't include typing up the pattern or any correspondence or any of that jazz. So knitting time only was 1,913 minutes, or an equivalent of 31 hours and 53 minutes. That seems like a lot. It actually, compared to some more complicated designs, really isn't that much. Had I, thought of maybe a stopwatch to use or something like that, keeping track of the time may not have constricted me as much and may have allowed me to work on this a little quicker. Last I talked to you about this, it also did not have a name. And initially I was thinking Fern because of the initial design. But then the yarn for my next collaboration came in the mail and I completely forgot that that one has fern in its name. It's called Fresh Fern. And looking at the pattern for that one, really fern stuck better with that one. So then I'm thinking, this color is just ever so mossy. And its name is Undergrowth, which where does moss grow? Under things. And we have a lot of moss out here. And I was outside looking at the moss and I'm like, it needs to have moss in its name. Me and my brain at a completely random time when I was not thinking about this piece at all or had it in front of me or anything that has to do with it in front of me, moss and order pops into my head, as in a play on Law and Order. Full disclosure, never seen an episode of it a day in my life. It sounded like it just fit. Moss with the color and order, it is very orderly. Everybody's in their place, there's clean lines. I'm gonna go with that. And it seems to be, well received with my testers and whatnot, and anybody I've told, they're like, that's really cute and that's catchy, and it does fit. Moss and order. So without further ado, here is the Moss and Order shawl. Now this is a wispy triangular boomerangy shaped shawl where you just start off at your little tip and keep going. I kept the main color on the increase border. Whole body is just repeated. The heck is my bind off edge? And then I chose the accent color to bind off with. I thought that left a nice chunky edge. And when you're wearing it, you're gonna be wearing it with the corner down. So it'll be kind of nice. And it is very orderly. You have very clean lines and everybody's in their place. So I figured the name fit. So I have a finished design. And he's off in testing right now. Donna of Red Door Fibers is also going to test her. So it's very, very fun. Look for that pattern is to be released on August 29th. Moving on, bound off a pattern. I wrote it up, it's in testing. So I had free needles. Well, that does not give you the right to cast on a million projects, or does it? So with my newfound freedom, my mind, like the floodgates opened and all the ideas come pouring in. So I drug out my handy Kindle Scribe to write them all down. And thank goodness for that, because my short-term memory is shot. And I really like a lot of the things that just magically popped into my head. Jotted those down, put those in my new ideas folder, and now I can continue on. I have a total of 3 more collab projects that are yarn supported for the remainder of the year. So my next up is a collaboration with Tracy, Sassy Strings Studio. She's in Canada, and I've seen her yarn for years, and I've had several of my testers over the years have used her yarn, and she came out with this new collection, and there was a green. I'm a sucker for a good green. And of late, I feel like I've been drawn to the more huntery, mossy greens, and this one wasn't. It wasn't that like lime, and it wasn't like deep. It was just intriguing to me, and I couldn't get it out of my head. We decided to collaborate on a beautiful shawl with this green, which is called Fresh Fern. She sent me her Sassy DK, and then Seriously Sassy Baby Surrey Alpaca and Silk Lace. I had to really read that carefully because I didn't want to get that wrong, and that is not something that will roll off of my tongue at least, but it's cute. So this is Fresh Fern. It has these deep tones in it, and it's just beautiful. And here is the lovely lace. So these will be held together. And I have a wondrously lovely top-down triangular shawl. I am just itching to work on a cable-heavy design. So this puppy is going to have lots of twists and turns and cables and textures, and I'm really looking forward to it. I don't love making charts, which is funny because when I first started knitting and I first started knitting cables, all I did, I couldn't read the pattern. If it had a chart, that's all I could use is a chart. Now I prefer the written side of things. So, but this guy, anywhere there can be a chart in my patterns, there will be. So this is definitely gonna be chart heavy. And this one will be just top-down triangle with tons of cables and textures. So I wanted to go with a simpler construction to let the textures and twists and cables show. And I really thought that this was definitely a time for lace to be held with something. I think that's very popular and has maybe been overused a little bit lately, but this is definitely one instance where I couldn't get away from it. I think it's just gonna bring the pattern out. And without it, I think it would be a little flat. That is my next collab project that is not on my needles. And I totally just did this video out of order. Why do I even bother taking notes for myself? I have 8 pages of notes for this video, and I totally did not even follow them. So this is my next collab project that's not on my needles. That is Sassy Strings Studio. And we have Surreliciously Sassy. Forgot. I told you my short-term memory is gone. And we have Sassy DK. That's gonna be going in my needles next. What just jumped on my needles, and I want to take a moment to sort of give a Katie pro tip here. This is something that we all know, but we need a gentle reminder from time to time. And I have a really hard head. Like, I don't like to deviate from my normal or my comfort zone at all. Sometimes, if a project is fighting us, a yarn is fighting us, needles are fighting us, a design element is fighting us, we need to listen to that. And we need to amend something we're doing. Maybe as simple as the needles and the yarn don't match. change your needle composition, or change your needle size, or hold a yarn double to make it better, or maybe sometimes we really want to do something and it's just not working out. That was the case with my next cast on. I bound off my Moss and Order shawl and then floodgates went off. Well, I sat downstairs and it was late at night one night and we were watching Big Brother and I was super frustrated anyway. It was just a frustrating, busy day. And I sat down with my needles and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cast this on and go to town. And initially, this design called for top-down triangular construction, which typically requires a garter tab cast-on. And we can have a love-hate relationship with garter tab cast-ons, but they do serve a great purpose. I've done them hundreds of times. Why should this time be any different? Well, it frickin' was. I tried 7 times in a row. I tried like 3 or 4 times, put the sucker down, came back to it, did it 3 or 4 more times. I could not make a freaking garter tab cast on. Like, what are you doing? So I just got frustrated. Started doing something else, finished watching my show, and I went to bed. The next day, I pick it up and I realize maybe this is trying to tell me something. Maybe this is the yarn gods trying to say, Katie, stop fighting this and do something different. This is not what you're meant to do with this. So I'm thinking, well, maybe, how can I do the cast on different to achieve what I want? Maybe I should just change the damn shape. So that led me to a new rabbit hole of sorts, which I am so happy that I listened. I am now going to do a sideways triangle, shape similar to my Picture It shawl or my Hidden Secrets shawl, but I don't want the V in the front to be so deep. So I'm gonna smooth that out a little bit. The stitch patterns that I had picked out for this are flowing so much better. Everything is working out so much better. Oh my goodness. Like I was fighting this and fighting this and fighting this, and then it all made sense. And the heavens opened up and my design came forth. So what design am I talking about? This is my latest collaboration with the Plucky Knitter. And I am once again using their Legacy line, this time in sport. In the colors Free Falling and Powdered Sugar, which together give me ridiculous pumpkin spice latte vibes. Just like the TV show I mentioned earlier, Law and Order, I do not like, I have never seen, but I have tried pumpkin spice lattes, but I just do not like them. But it totally gives me PSL vibes. And I am channeling my inner fall vibes. This humidity needs to go fall off a cliff because I can't stand it anymore. Anyway, shiny object yet again. These are the yarns that I'm using for this collaboration shawl that I could not get going. So once I changed my shape orientation and my starting orientation, and which changed how the stitch patterns will be laid out, everything just ran. So I knit up my starting chunk and repeats, wrote it up, and then ripped it out to test it. That's typically how I go about my shawls, just so that I can test them a little bit to make sure that I'm starting the right way, because nothing is worse, and especially after my infatuation shawl, I think this is burned in my brain, nothing is worse than starting wrong, because then everything's wrong and you're screwed. I feel like I'm being witty with my names lately. So, but I'm up to this lovely textured part. I had to use like matchy, like fall inspired stitch markers and whatnot. So I have my little flower here, and the progress keeper is also part of that set. If I can get the little damn thing to cooperate. Little tiny acorn with flower. Those are from Kelsey of the Littlest Charm Company. And then my center stitch marker is a beautiful butterfly that John got me in Norway. Just have a little tiny bit started. The yarn was fighting me, everything was fighting me, and it won, and I'm so happy it did. Just a little, PSA, listen to your yarn, listen to things when they may become difficult. Maybe you're not doing it the right way. Maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe it's just not right, or just not meant to be. So again, this was my tiny beginning to to my Falling into Spice shawl, which is a collaboration with the Plucky Knitter in their beautiful Legacy Sport. That one will be coming out September 19th. I'm aiming to be done by the end of next weekend. I think that is very doable for me. And then it will go into testing the following week. So I already have some people that are super excited to test it, and it is just fun. It's not going to be a super complicated pattern, but the stitch patterns that are in it are just going to give classic, for me, classic fall vibes. Totally classic fall vibes. So I'm so happy that I listened to the yarn on that one. I was a good, responsible Katie, and I got my yarn wound up for my next design after that. After those two, I only have one more collab project for the year that I have not cast on yet. That is a festive wrap with Sunshine Yarns. Also though, a personal project is going to be an advent blanket. Yes, I am designing a blanket. I love advents. Absolutely love them. I don't like to split them up though. I feel guilty about doing that. I feel like a dyer put all of these colors together for a reason, and they need to be kept together. I fell in love with the advent this year from Oakwood Yarns, and I may have purchased two, and I may have purchased several additional main skeins, and I may be designing a blanket to go along with it. That's gonna be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to those two because I've never specifically designed for an advent. So those are gonna be awesome. Those are gonna go on after these two get finished. And then of course I have to work on my mystery knit along for next year, but you're not gonna see that. Nice try. And the only other design in progress that I have is the tiny little Labubu sweaters I showed you last time. These little guys. So I picked Elizabeth's up, the one that I had started, the little tiny neck for. And I worked a couple rounds, then I threw a couple short rows in the back, and I'm ready to split the sleeves off and work down the body. Don't believe I showed you her sketch. She came up with a cute little sketch. The arms are so tiny. I can't get all those stripes in. So she's totally fine with me just doing a couple because that's all I'm going to get in. But I can easily make the little waves on the body. I think it's gonna be cute. It's gonna work up really quick. I've been so busy and mind numbed lately that I didn't pick it up, but I felt guilty, so I picked it up this morning. So hopefully next time we chat, I can show you those. And I am not going to write up the pattern for those, but I will have all of the basic counts and notes for you on my Ravelry project pages, should you want to make your very own Labubu sweater. And then as soon as I get done with hers, I have to pick Sophia's up and get hers done, which she sketched me out a little design too. Oh my goodness, who doesn't love a quick little easy project? Suckers are gonna be outfitted nicely. That's about a wrap for right now. I am thrilled that I have a finished design off the needles and in testing, which that is amazing. So happy with that. And then I have a dip in the works. So happy with the way the changes are going on that one. And then I wound my yarn for my next design, but things are moving ahead. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this little deeper dive into Katie's design process, sort of picking my brain just a little bit. And hopefully next time, maybe I'll have another finished design to show you. In the meantime, I think I'm going to make some lunch and I have to make my cobbler and get dinner in the crock pot. Oh crap, gotta do that first. But after that, I think I don't know who's gonna win. Is the little Labubu sweater going to win my afternoon work hours or my Falling into Spice shawl? I don't know. We shall see what my hands feel like working on. Happy knitting, everybody.